Who would like to get inside the combine? All right, well, we've got a chance to, we're going to follow Bill and get inside the combine.
And so this is what it looks like from the combine. Got a yield monitor here too that'll start up, and we'll show you in just a few minutes as that goes ahead and starts up what's there. You see a whole panel of different things. In fact, this is an outline of a combine, and if something goes wrong here, one of the mechanisms stops, it'll show on here. It'll have a buzzer that'll buzz, and it'll show me that one of these mechanisms stops, so I know that I need to stop and figure out why something isn't working. This would be the engine speed. This is the speed that we're driving. I said I'd combine about 3.5 miles an hour. We have the mechanism that shows the kernels off here. We can change the speed of that as well. We have a fan that blows any shucks out or any small pieces out as well. And that'll pop up here as well. And then you see the different other settings that we can have here. We have a monitor here even that looks at the back of the combine and makes sure that I'm not driving too fast to have kernels come out the back of the combine with those cobs. So it's called a grain loss monitor, so that we make sure and get all the grain in the combine, because that's what we need to sell to be able to have income from this farm. This is a yield monitor. So when we're going through the field, you'll be able to see the instant yield up here. This shows the average yield for this last batch that was done. So we figure yields in bushels per acre. A bushel of corn is 56 pounds, probably about 1.5 5-gallon pails full of corn. And that's one bushel. In this case, this acre, about the size of a football field, was a little over 200 bushels per acre, 210, which is the best yields I've ever had. I've never had yields that good before. We also test the moisture of the corn. In this case, it was 16.3% moisture, and we like to have it about 15% moisture. And so that's very good and dry. Sometimes we'll harvest up to almost 25%. Then it has the pounds and the total weight in that batch.
How long does it take to plant a field?
How long does it take to plant a field?
So planting a field, like this field here, it's a little over 100 acres, so it would take me about a day and a half. If I'm combining it, doing this harvesting with this corn combine, it'll probably take me maybe 3 days, 2 to 3 days to do it if everything is working right. Soybean harvest, maybe 2 days or so to do that same field.
When does farming get started?
Here in Iowa, we started farming as soon as people came to the state. That's one of the things they first started to do. So back in the 1850s, long before any of us were born, they started farming 1840s, 1850s. In fact, we have an award that we give out every year for farms that have been farmed by the same family. And we have some families, we had 101 families this year that got an award for being that farmland, being in the same family for 150 years. So back since the Civil War time. Now, farming in other places started before that. So there has always been farming one way or the other back thousands of years as people needed to raise food. Most of our corn goes to an ethanol plant that goes into ethanol that's blended with gasoline that goes into your car. Some of that then goes to animals to feed as well. Historically, our corn and soybeans have gone to feeding animals, and so we make meat and eggs and beef and pork and bacon and hamburgers and steak from the corn and soybeans that we raise here in Iowa, and it's always been about raising.
How big is the field?
The field that we have here, we have 3 different fields that I farm. The field that's here is about 140 acres of corn and about 130 acres of soybeans. And those acres, again, are about the size of a football field. So that's this field. The other fields that I have are just a little bit smaller than that.
What is the width and length of a field?
The width and
The
length.
width and length of the field. So this field is just a little bit more than 1/2 mile long, and about 3/4 of a mile wide, which is a little bit bigger than most fields. Most fields, many fields in Iowa, are a 1/2 mile one way by 1/2 mile the other way. So in what's called a section of land, that's 1 mile by 1 mile, there's 4 of these fields in that section. Now we have fields of all different sizes out there, but that's a very common size, is a 1/2 mile by 1/2 mile. That would be 160 acres. So it's a pretty good sized area. When you get out and walk in it, it makes it a lot easier to get across when you got a combine or a tractor.
How much corn can a combine hold?
Good question. So a combine, remember we talked about bushels. A bushel of corn is 56 pounds. This combine will hold about 220 bushels in its grain tank. Then we would put that grain tank maybe into this cart that we had looked at earlier, that red cart. That'll hold about 600 or a little over 600 bushels. Our grain truck holds about 600 bushels as well. So 200 bushels is just this year, just a little over an acre of production. So we have to empty this combine. If we have 140 acres of corn on this farm, at least 140 times if we filled up the combine every time.
Every hand was up when you asked for questions, so.
That's great.
That's good.
Let me just say, too, that I appreciate you all being from Perry. Perry is a place that I've spent some time in as well. My grandfather was from Dallas County, from Minburn, Iowa, and he spent some time living in Perry. So I would go and visit Perry to visit my grandfather as I was growing up. So it's great to be talking to some great 4th graders from Perry.
Yes. Can we
All right.
thank you to Bill?
Everybody. All
Thank
right.
you all. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Wait, Bill.
Bye.
All right.